Hello, my friends. This is episode 2 of Bill Schnoblin. So first of all, I'd like to apologize for the sound quality of this video. They turned the levels all the way up, and I had to try and tweak it. And believe it or not, this is the best I could get it. My apologies. There's a link to the original video if you'd like to see the original video. One of the many lies and deceits that Bill Schnoblin tries to peddle to people is that he was some kind of a great guru, some kind of a medium who was able to contact these ascended masters that would give him these godlike abilities. And one of the abilities was to heal people through empathy, or empathic healing as he calls it. Another one is that these ascended masters came down and talked to him and told him various things he had to do, like sleep with certain people and take drugs and drink their blood. And join the Church of Satan. But yeah, that was the ascended masters who came down to him and told him to do this. So he's not responsible for it, you see. He's completely innocent. These ascended masters told him to do this. Let's hear what this lying shill has to say.
Okay, just tell one.
Well, okay. One time I was in a circle. I was just in training, and the lady beside me had a uterine infection, and I prayed for her to be healed, and I got a uterine infection, which is a really good trick when you don't have a uterus. But I went to the doctor, and he said, "Well, I don't believe this, but you're testing in your blood for the kind of infection that women usually get in their uterus. And I've never heard of a man getting it."
Wow.
So it was like kind of an empathetic healing thing that went wacko.
There is no possible way that you would have gotten a uterary infection. Some of the most common ones are like endometriosis or cervicitis. You would have to have female reproductive organs. You would actually have to have a uterus. If you did get a uterus infection without having a uterus, you would have been a medical anomaly. Experts would have flown in from around the world. There would have been papers written on you. There would have been documentaries on you. It would have been absolutely amazing.
Because, for example, one night I had one come in and take me over, and I got about half of this head of white hair in one night, just from this guide being in.
Wow.
Because they just drain all the life force out of you. And I was told later by a different spirit guide that just because this mighty great doctor of divinity was in me for, say, 15 or 20 minutes, he sucked 5 years off my lifespan.
Wow.
Which I do not receive now that I am a Christian, but at the time, it was scared my wife very badly, because it was a very scary time.
Bill, white hair is genetic. It happens to people even in their 20s. There are many different factors that cause people to get premature white hair. For the most part, it is just a natural process, especially if you had dark hair. There was no Scooby-Doo event where some ghost came out of a closet and your hair suddenly went white. But yeah, nice try, Bill. If some medium or spirit or whatever it was that came to you and said that you had lost 5 years of your life, how would they have determined that? They could say, well, you were projected to live to be 75, but because of this spirit entering you, you're going to die at the age of 70. No, Bill, that's not how it works. People can project how long a person might live, but there's other factors that come in, like unexpected events. You might get hit by a car. Something might happen. You might have a stroke at an early age or whatever. But they can just estimate about how long you would live, and then other factors can adjust that.
Did you decide to stop it because of it being
That never
scary?
happened again.
Right.
I swelled up like a tick and ripped out of the robes I was wearing. It was kind of like that old TV series, The Incredible Hulk, where the guy would rip out of his clothes, and she didn't know what was going on, because she was sitting there kind of, helping me through this, and all of us. This is not something they prepare you for in medium school, but we got through it.
Bill, there are various medical conditions that can cause one's skin and enlarge, one of them being elephantitis, allergic reactions. If something happened to you and your skin got inflamed and blew up, and ripped your clothes apart, that was probably a very serious allergic reaction, and you probably had to go to the hospital, because if you wouldn't have, you probably would have died, because they would have had to given you a shot to reverse the effects. But Bill, come on. Enough with the deceit. Let's hear the truth. That's what we really, really want to hear, Bill. We just want to hear the truth. None of these lies, none of this deceit. Just tell us the truth.
I had even Adolf Hitler come into me a few times and give me advice about how we need to exterminate all Jews.
Bill, I know you're full of shit. My viewers know you're full of shit. And you know you're full of shit. But why would you choose Adolf Hitler as your example of one of the people that you had channeled? That's really quite disturbing. Why did you choose that? Is there something you're not telling us?
So Yahweh isn't going to say something, 5,000 years ago and then say something opposite in the 20th or 21st century. So what I tell anybody who's supposedly communicating with an ascended master, whether it's Jesus or Moses or, whoever, is, does what they say agree with the Bible? Because if it doesn't, flush it. It's that simple. That's the conclusion we came to, because the Bible is an objective source of truth upon which you can measure things. And because otherwise you're adrift.
How is the Bible an objective source of truth? None of the books of the Bible have objectively been proven to be true.
Okay, did channeling ever hurt anyone?
Well, I think it hurt us, because basically a lot of the spiritual advice that came through me ended up leading us in some very dangerous directions, even to the point of, say, vampirism.
Okay.
And I'm sure, the same thing is true of other people who sought advice from us, because a lot of times we would be encouraged, and the people with us would be encouraged to partake in some very, very dangerous, very sinful activities. Like, for example, when I was into vampirism, several of the women in the coven were being given transfusions, and they would say, oh, it will be very excellent for your spiritual evolution if you allow Bill to bite you in the neck and drink your very own blood. That's not very good advice. This was in the dawning days of AIDS. And, well, I don't think I had AIDS or gave anybody AIDS. I mean, it was just not a very good idea, and yet we were doing it. So, and we advise people sometimes, the guides, the spirit guides advise people to take dangerous hallucinogenic drugs. They advised them to, do other things that weren't necessarily very smart. And of course, they often advised them to do very dangerous occult ritual.
You were the science fiction writer who loved Gothic stories, and you were the one who introduced vampirism. Nobody else introduced it to this group. And there's no way you can drink human blood from someone's neck. You could cut them, and then from there, suck the blood out of them. But you can't bite somebody on the neck and get blood from them. It's not possible. It's just not. Unless you have hollow teeth, you can't do that, Bill. So this is very telling as to the bullshit that you believe in your own mind.
It says in your book that your spirit guides encouraged you gently to get involved in the Church of Satan. So did they actually speak to you in those words?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, what happens is you hear words in your mind.
No spirit guides, no ascended masters came down and talked to you, Bill. You were the one who wanted to join the Church of Satan, and of course there's no record that you ever did join the Church of Satan, because you would have had to travel out to San Francisco and actually been personally vetted by Anton LaVey in order to be able to join the Church of Satan at that particular time. All the information that you got on Satanism came from Arius, came from David. As for you accepting personal responsibility for any possible thing, even the decisions that you make in your life, even those you shift onto some kind of ascended master voice in your head. You are just an absolute child. Very despicable, completely irresponsible.
It's not like there's this audible, although there are mediums that actually they have what they call spirit trumpets, where this is kind of old-fashioned stuff. I don't think this is still going on much anymore, but where the medium would actually have a thing that looked like a megaphone that would float around the seance room, and this disembodied voice would speak through this trumpet and say things. That was called being a trumpet medium. Those were very highly prized. And sometimes there would be mediums that would literally sit there, and this is creepy to see. I've seen this, where they would sit there like this, with their mouth open, nothing moving in the mouth, but a voice coming out.
Wow.
But you're not seeing lips move or tongues move. And this deep voice or whatever would come out and then say something. But in our case, almost always, that only happens usually with these really high-level guides that like give you seizures and stuff.
Whoever trained you in this was training you in fraudulent mediumship. So all the things that you claim to have heard, it is obvious that this is bullshit. This is stuff that you are making up. You are saying that, oh, I talked to some kind of ascended master, and the ascended master told me to do this and told me to do that. You know, like drink people's blood, which you wanted to do because you're fascinated with the vampires. Take drugs because, well, that's something that you wanted to do, or sleep with certain people because, well, that's what you wanted to do in the first place. You're just skirting it off and saying, oh, no, it was the ascended master I talked to. You're so full of shit, Bill.
Usually I would hear a voice in my head, and it would be very clearly the voice, and it would like resonate down into my voice box and everything, and it would come out with an accent. And, you know, like the African witch doctor, he sounded like an African witch doctor. And the monk from England sounded like a monk from England. Actually, he was from Edinburgh, so he had a faint Scottish accent. But anyhow, yeah, and I would hear these voices, and in that case, I forget exactly what you asked, did they tell me to do?
Join the Church of Satan.
Yeah, I was.
Because most people don't think
advice.
spirit guides would say that kind of thing.
They would tell me, well, I would get the initial nudge in this case, like from the fellow that ran the occult bookstore there in Milwaukee at that time. But, you know, we'd go to the guys, well, is this okay? You know, and they, well, you have to realize that Anton LaVey is an ascended master come back. You know, he's a bodhisattva or something, you know. And I mean, well, because the guide said, he says, because again, you see, the funny thing to say is the Church of Satan really isn't that bad. I mean, it's bad. But compared to hardcore Satanism, we used to call it comic opera Satanism. It's not really, you know, serious Satanism. They don't even believe in the devil in the Church of Satan. So joining the Church of Satan was not as huge a metaphysical step as you might think.
Oh, so now the Church of Satan is not all that bad. Yeah, well, that's already been proven since the dawn of the Church of Satan. But what is this with you and this hardcore Satanism? What the hell is hardcore Satanism, Bill? This is the end of this video. The next video, he's going to be talking about his supposed encounters with high-level Freemasonry. That should be interesting. Thank you so much, and blessed be.
I chose to become a vampire because it seemed, you know, sexier somehow. And so anyhow, I went through about a year and a half where basically I lived on nothing but human blood and Catholic communion. That's all I ate.